with sharp wit and hilarious storytelling, my next guest is sharing behind-the-scenes stories from 15 years on the road. Please welcome the one and only Rick Mercer. So much for being here.
Oh, this is fantastic. Hello, everyone.
Well, Rick, first off, I have to start. I'm not going to lie. We are sitting in chairs, but when I initially heard you were coming on,
yes,
I was like, how can we do this in an alley? In like a classic, like, Rick Rant style with this angle, but this is not my angle. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, the alley's not that far from here. We could go.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, next time.
Okay.
We got it.
All right.
Well, first off, congratulations on your new book. It is absolutely beautiful. The Road Years.
Thank you.
Now, you wrote part one of your memoir, Talking to Canadians During the Pandemic.
Yeah.
So the Road Years picks up from there, correct?
Yes.
So was it always a plan to have two memoirs?
Not even close.
Okay, cool.
I didn't even plan on having one memoir.
Yeah.
People had inquired about it, but I was intimidated about it. I didn't know if I could do it. It was a big learning curve.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the pandemic happened, and like so many people, I had to figure out something to do.
Totally.
Because in show business, you know, you're told to go home and work, but you can't work from home in show business.
Yeah.
You can only be unemployed from home. So, so eventually I wrote it, and I wrote it chronologically, which apparently you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Everyone said don't do that, but I did. And then when I finally had written enough for a book, I was just starting the Mercer Report. So I had 15 years of runway.
Yeah.
That's 15 years of traveling around the country, talking to everyone from prime ministers and rock stars, but also fishermen and farmers and paramedics and nurses and people in the oil patch or wherever. And there's a lot of stories. So this was much more fun to write than the other one.
Okay, and speaking of the adventures, so in the Road Years, you have a number of stories, and I don't want to give too much away, but can we talk about a couple of my favorites?
Sure, please.
Okay, so the first one, we've got an image of it because it's in the book, and it's the Train of Death.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Well, as the show evolved, we started doing these segments that we would refer to as host in peril.
Okay.
People love to see me in danger or very uncomfortable. And the Train of Death kind of was both of those.
Yeah.
And it was the Train of Death, you get 3 cars, and they're chained together in like 20 feet of chain.
Immediately no.
And the first car has an engine but no brakes. The second car has no engine, no brakes. The third car, the one in the back, the one I was in, has no engine but has brakes and faulty steering. They do this on purpose. This is for fun. And then they race against other teams. But I was going around the track, and it was the test track.
Yeah.
And I was spinning out of control. I would hit the brakes. The car would spin around and slam the car. And I literally thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
And then I thought, not only am I going to die, when people say, oh my goodness, how did he die?
Yeah.
People would say, he was doing the Train of Death.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, it's a comedy deck.
Yeah.
I'll be a punchline.
It's not a misnomer. It is the Train of Death.
Yeah. It's
you
like,
got it.
what was he thinking?
Yeah.
He signed the release.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a scary one.
Well, maybe a little less death-defying,
Yes.
but you also have a story where you met a beekeeper, and I love bees, but I don't know if I love them this much.
Yeah. Look at that.
That is terrifying. I am glad that you have stuff in your nose and ears, though, so those bees can't get in there.
So I was out there, and I was doing a nice story about the bees, because the bees are disappearing.
Yes.
And then they said, we can show you how honey is made. And I thought,
What a
yes,
nice...
but I've seen many, you know, weather people and reporters over the years show us how honey is being made.
Yeah.
And then they said, and of course, we could do a bee beard. And I was like, oh, what is that? And then they take the queen bee and they put it on your neck.
No.
Yeah, and then they slather some juice that drives bees, like catnip for bees. And then they gently take over this giant box with like tens of thousands of bees. And then they go, ah! And the bees all fly around. And then they just start, they cover your body, and then they start coming for the queen.
Oh, my...
And then to up the ante, they throw another queen in there.
Oh, no.
Yes.
That feels like a battle royale.
And also, before you do it, they shove cotton right up your nose and shove cotton right in your ears, and then they say, don't open your mouth. And you're like, but my nose and ears.
How do you breathe?
How do you breathe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is wild. Well, okay, so diverting away from danger
Okay.
and stinging and things, out of all your adventures, I think there's one that's a standout for you, and it's to do with the amazing Canadian band Rush. Am I correct?
Right. Yes.
So-
well, I had all 3 members of Rush on the band on the show over the years, but Neil Peart gave me a drum lesson.
Oh my gosh.
I took drum lessons when I was in grade 7 and 8, so I could sound like Neil Peart. Then I quickly realized, like all mortal human beings, that will never happen.
No.
And flash forward, Neil Peart comes on the show. He's no longer with us, but he also shipped in the Rush drum kit from Los Angeles, the monster one that's plated in gold and spins around and has pyro in it. And he gave me a drum lesson. He was really funny. He was incredibly generous. He was a great teacher, and it was one of those childhood thrills come through. I couldn't believe that it actually happened.
That's absolutely amazing, and it's so great. Throughout this book, you've got stories about everyday Canadians, you've got stories about famous Canadians, and it's truly inspiring to get to kind of see Canada and the road through your eyes.
I was really lucky. I didn't unpack for 15 years. And I enjoyed it. The work-life balance wasn't an issue because my partner was the producer on the show, so it's not like I was avoiding anything at home. And it was just go, go, go for 15 years. And there's a lot of stories, and every story that I included in this book, I wanted to be either funny or about people that I found inspiring, and I wanted to celebrate. The show was always a celebration. We didn't go anywhere unless we were celebrating, and that's what this book is, I think. And you know, we live in a certain time now where there's a lot of toxicity, there's a lot of bad news, there's a lot of unknowns. I think it's good if we can also take a moment and celebrate what's good about the country.
I agree,
So that's what the
100%.
book's about.
Yeah. Now, speaking of not unpacking, you're also taking this baby on the road, I hear, with our good friend Jan.
Yes. Well, of course, there's a whole chapter about Jan Arden.
Jan Arden, classic,
who's a dear friend. And she was a regular guest on the show. On a show, we never had regular guests.
Yeah, she was the regular guest.
From day one, when I convinced her to put on the spandex and I sent her down a luge track, and she started screaming, I thought, well, we're going to have her back. And she came back time and time again. And so she has a novel out that's coming out this week. And I have this book out. So we've decided to get together in 4 or 5 locations, and we're going to do events for the public, you know, 700 seats, 1,000 seats.
Amazing.
And it's sold out in Vancouver, I know, 1,100 seats or something.
Wow.
It's all for Jan. They all want to see Jan. And yeah, it's going to be exciting.
That's awesome. Well, best of luck with the tour. Congrats on the new book. It's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Rick.
you.
And
Thank you.
thanks to Rick, you are all going home with a copy of his book, The Road Years. Hey, Mary here. What did you think? Drop your comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of the good stuff.